Welcome to Freedom Cast, where your hosts, Jordan and Miranda, show you how to get just a little bit more out of life. Are you ready to leave normal behind?
All right, James and Alaina, thank you so much for being on our show. After a little bit of technical difficulty, we got you guys on. Welcome to Freedom Cast.
Hey, guys.
Thank y'all for having us. We appreciate it.
Not a problem. We appreciate you guys spending a little bit of your Thursday afternoon with us.
Yes.
Just to answer a few questions and just so our audience can get to know you guys a little bit better, and we can talk about some cool stuff, because Miranda and I are all about change, and you guys have gone through a lot of change recently. So we're excited to delve into all that stuff. But if you guys could just tell us a little bit about yourself and how we met, and then we will go from there. That'd be great.
That sounds good. Alaina, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so I'm Alaina, and I teach high school seniors American history, and just completed my 4th year of teaching. So that's been going pretty good.
Awesome.
And yes, I really like it a lot. And then James, what do you do?
So I teach as well, not as long as Alaina. For a few years, several years, have been in the field of parks and recreation, doing everything from landscape maintenance to desk work, that kind of thing. But recently, I have transitioned into also becoming a teacher.
Awesome.
I teach 4th grade math at an elementary school in Charlotte, and I love it.
And we met y'all through church. I can't remember exactly how we met. I think we were at some meeting, and we just happened to start chit-chatting, but
yeah, I remember because we both thought you, Alaina, looked like my sister. And I was like, Jordan, she looks just like my sister. And then you thought Jordan looked like somebody. And
James Franco.
Jordan, you look like this person. And we were like, well, actually, we thought we were already looking at you.
I'm sitting there in the sanctuary, and Lance going, James, look at that guy. He looks like James Franco.
Knock over here.
That's so funny. That's so random how that happened.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It was very specific, too. Like, she had a name for it. Yeah, it was very true.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's so crazy. But anyway, since our focus in this series is on change, we just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about some major life changes that you guys have gone through recently. James, if you want to talk on this part, you want to talk a little bit about becoming a teacher recently. I know you just recently made that change. Then if you guys want to talk about, you just recently moved to a different place too, and that's always exciting, or you're in the process of moving, I guess. But yeah, if you just want to talk about those couple things, that'd be awesome.
Sure. So specific to your question, you're right. So my wife and I got married in September of 2017. We recently are doing the house and all that. For me personally, it does feel like a lot of big changes all at once. The hometown that I grew up in was very small. So moving to Charlotte felt like New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like getting used to that lifestyle, getting used to like how busy things can feel up here. But then also, praying to find God's best, right, as far as a spouse goes. And Alaina and I are very blessed to meet. We actually met through online dating.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I
Exactly.
feel like I know a lot of people that have met through that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have said that recently.
A lot of really good couples. Too,
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I feel thankful for it just because, there's lots of different ways to connect with folks. And for me, it just, that was a good way to be specific about it. And plus I had been, it's kind of funny. I have a very good friend who I was kind of resistant to the idea. And he said, come on, man, just give it a shot, give it a shot. He's been telling me give it a shot for like 2 or 3 years. So finally I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I had begun communicating with Alaina within that 2 to 3 weeks after I got the service. So it was fairly quickly.
Awesome.
Yeah, but that may be another story for another day. But as far as the work goes, Jordan, I know you specifically had asked about that. What I'm doing now is not my end all be all. I love what I'm doing. Let me start by saying I love teaching. The students that I get to work with, it's elementary school. It's fourth grade. The kids are super smart. They're super quick. And so I like that. My previous job, I worked in the field of Parks and Rec, and I worked at a couple of different places here and there. And the more you advance in that field, the more papers you get and not people. And by that, I mean, you do more desk work, you do more budgets, blah, blah, blah. And that defeats the whole reason why I got into the field. I enjoyed working with students. I enjoyed working with, doing outdoor activities, things like that. And so I had prayed about a change, wanting to get back into that field, and prayed about it. And Alaina had mentioned to me, well, hey, the school system needs teachers.
And you keep talking about wanting to do it too.
Yeah, I had kind of low-key been thinking about doing it. And I know at church a lot of times it's reinforced that our time is limited. We need to spend it wisely. We need to love on people.
Yep.
I think I can think back to a good friend that I grew up with who always used to say that we are vessels. And as much as God pours into us, we would be totally selfish if we only kept that for us and we would pour into others as well. And so,
yeah, I really like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, like a lot of that was, I feel like, was just coming to a head. And so I had applied with the school system. I met with the principal, and when you interview and you sit there and they ask you the typical questions or whatever, and I think like the last thing they asked was like, well, why should we bother hiring you over someone else?
Yeah.
I said, guys, I'll be real. Like, I know, like, y'all know, and I know that I don't have a teaching degree or whatever, but I kind of brought Jesus to the interview with me.
There you go.
I love it.
I said something to the effect of like, the kids here need to know the love of Jesus, and I want to be able to provide a safe, comfortable environment for your kids. I'm not going to sit there and preach to them, but I want to disciple them in a way that is healthy and helpful, not just the content of math, but also like life skills, like how to do this, how to do that.
2 days later, you got a job offer.
It was actually, they called me like 2 days before Christmas too. It was really sudden.
That's so cool.
The way, yeah. So for me, 2018 rung in a lot of new change. January 1st, 2018. I'm married. I'm not single. I'm looking at being a homeowner. I was renting previously. And everything I knew about how to do my career as far as how to build groups and do things with students was about to be transitioned to the classroom setting and not an outdoor setting. So for me, it's a lot of change, and it's good change. I used to be somewhat resistant to changes, big or small, but something Alaina has taught me, not just practically, like because we got married, but something that I've noticed is if you embrace it, or if you lean into it, or you run with it instead of working against it, change can work for you and not against you. And I'm trying to apply that principle of change working for me and not against me moving forward. And I'm noticing it just kind of helped. Like, it's just a good mantra to have. So.
Yeah, I love that. Embrace, lean in, and run towards. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's great.
We should have called our whole series that.
I know.
I'm stealing it. And James, I wanted to comment too. I know this is kind of going off on a little tangent, but I thought that was so cool. But that story, you had told us that story before, but I loved hearing it again, just about, you were able to be authentic in that moment you know, and you trusted, you're like, yeah, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to anyway, because I feel it in my heart. And you said it, and it was just a cool, like, yeah, I'm going to be my authentic, real self. And it's just so cool that it worked out for you. And, you know, there's obviously going to be situations where like that may not have worked out, but it's just really cool that worked out for you.
I'm thankful too, because my last actual job before going to the school,
Mm-hmm.
I kept the Christian side of me separate. I did not talk about my faith. I did not exhibit my faith.
Yeah.
I was maybe like, I had Christian aspects, obviously, to do the output, right? Whatever task you had to do, okay, we'll do it compassionately, do it fairly, or whatever. But as far as being honest to say, and upfront about how Jesus has changed my life, here's how he can change yours as well.
Yeah.
It's something that I kept closeted, because to me that was this is work, and that's personal.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I lived my life and I saw that God has blessed me with all aspects of my life, that I need to invite him into that space as well, because he's the one who gave me that space in the first place.
Yeah.
Come to find out, my principal is actually atheist and does not adhere to anything. And it's funny, even too, so he heard me say that in our interview. And we've also talked a little bit about timing of things.
Uh-huh.
We had mentioned, I had mentioned to him, I said, hey, great news. My wife and I just got a house. And he said, oh, cool. Where is it? And we started talking about it. And he was saying, oh, that's cool. I have a good friend who lives, 2 blocks from you guys. And he said, well, that's cool. The timing worked out for your summer break. That way you could just focus on that and not have to do work plus a house. And I was like, yeah, the Lord's pretty good, isn't he? And he kind of smiled.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Awesome.
I don't, for our listeners out there who are wondering, is it possible to witness to your coworkers? It absolutely is. And I'll be honest, my role at my school, I feel more embraced and appreciated than my last role. And I feel like, because I'm ushering in the Holy Spirit each day, that might have something to do with it. I don't know, but yeah.
That's really cool. And I think that's where change can be so good, because you just stuck yourself in a completely different situation and you're like, hey, I'm going to bring like my faith to the forefront here. And
you can be intentional.
It's hard if you've been at, the same job for 2 years, and then, just kind of, it's hard to change when you're already in a situation, but starting fresh, it's just really like, that can really help make you more bold in certain ways. And that's really cool that you've been able to really embrace that, especially with teaching, with, like kids need that love, and it's, lacking a lot nowadays.
You can't hide it either.
Yeah, Miranda, to your point, a lot of my students in particular dad is not around, or the male role models that they do see are fictional characters on a TV show. And so to have that connection with a positive male figure that says you can do this, you absolutely can overcome what you're facing. You can be that doctor when you grow up. You can this, you can that. I think it's helpful. Yeah, you may want to cut that part out. I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love when we go on like little tangents, because I think every episode kind of makes itself. And, we're talking about change is like the big thing, but that's what we always want to be able to talk about things as they go. Right. So yeah, we're happy to.
And I'll say this too, just for our listeners, if you're considering making a change into public education, but don't have a teaching background, don't have a teaching degree, state of North Carolina does have an option called lateral entry. I don't exactly know the website, but you can just Google the mess out of it and you'll find it.
Yeah. That's okay. I never would have thought that was possible. I never would have thought that was possible without
Right.
a degree. No, that's so cool.
Right. But yeah, just want to throw that out there as well.
So I want to talk a little bit to Alaina, since I mean, it's been a lot of change. Obviously, we're talking about James changing career paths, but also I want to talk a little bit about the marriage, because that is a huge life change. I remember, you know, when Jordan and I just got married, it took us like a year to even just get kind of like settled with each other, you know, just, you know, okay, I'm stuck with this person. So how has that been for you, Alaina? And just, you know,
oh darn, stuck with you forever.
Yeah.
So we got married last September, as James said, and so we're hitting about our 10-month mark.
Awesome.
And
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. And you know, a lot of girls are always like, oh, I want to get married and just want to find the right one. And you know, I was that same girl too. And so when James and I were talking about marriage, of course, I'm really excited about it. And I knew I wanted to do that, and he did too. But in terms of how's it going, it's awesome. We've really enjoyed the adventures we've been going on, in spite of all the craziness happening with all these life changes all happening within the year. But in terms of how is married life going, it is wonderful. No complaints. I know a lot of people always ended up telling me, oh, that first year is really hard. And I took that into consideration, and I haven't honestly felt that way. I don't know if that's just because I knew what I was getting into before we got married, or whether we're just making sure to always communicate about anything and everything. But we've really enjoyed this first year, and whether that's still the honeymoon period or something's going to pop up later on, who knows? But
well, that's people will tell you like all sorts of things, because they'll, you know, we've been married for almost 6 years now, and they're like, oh,
just
like,
wait, you know?
Wait till you hit 7 years, then it's gonna be the old ball and chain. Like, I don't know.
Like the 6-year hurdle, who knows?
Yeah, so yeah, don't listen to those people. You know, we love marriage. So
Yeah.
And I get to go home and hang out with one of my best friends all the time. It's great.
Yeah, and that's so
When
cool.
we were
That's
just
the
dating, we had to leave.
for sure.
Yeah, and compared to when we were dating, you know, I was hating saying goodbye, except when we had to part ways. And now it's just like, oh, we can like go to bed, wake up, and there you are again.
Yeah, I would agree. I had a lot of my friends who were married say the same thing, like, oh, well, that first year, man, and it hasn't hit yet. Whatever it is that they've been warning about has not come yet. I recognize I'm saying that as a newlywed, but to Alaina's point of knowing what you're getting into, I mean, we've prayerfully considered marriage before we knew each other. And I think if you, as an individual, are open and honest about, and real specific, like, what do you want to do as a married person? Not just like, well, I want someone who's tall and who plays volleyball. No. That's not. That's not. So, like, be real specific. Like, okay, as a married person, I'm going to commit to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
For my wife, or I'm going to commit to do this, this, and this for my husband.
And another thing that we've taken the time for is to invest in our marriage and to find ways to help prevent anything that could be problematic, whether that be through just discussions that we have with each other, or we've also done a class at church called Two Becoming One, as when we were so engaged, but kind of figuring out what could be a problem once we do get married. And then last February, we went to the Weekend to Remember, which is done by, is it Family Life?
Yeah,
Family Life.
Sounds
so
right.
we did a little weekend seminar, and it was just really interesting to hear people who had been married much longer than we have, and saying, here's how to address the problem, and you guys do it together as a team, and realize that your spouse is not the problem, but your spouse is your teammate. And that's just really helped in terms of just day-to-day things that pop up, or in terms of what are we thinking about doing in the future. And that's just been really insightful for us as we've gone through these different series.
right. The your spouse is not the problem. The problem is the problem. Your spouse is your teammate to help you tackle the problem.
Yep.
That's something Alaina has brings to the table for sure. I appreciate her mindset of that, and we do try to tackle a lot of things like that.
Yeah, I think you guys hit on something really big there in terms of just dealing with change and looking towards change in general, and that, you know, you're being proactive on things and not reactive. And Miranda and I have always felt that way very much with our marriage specifically, and just kind of, you know, taking those steps to grow early on and to work on that communication, and to prayerfully consider getting married in general, or prayerfully consider as you're heading towards change and doing things. You know, there's a lot of things that are going to come up that are not within our control. But then I just think that's really cool that you guys have been able to do that from the beginning, because being intentional from the beginning can help prevent a lot of things from going wrong in general.
Oh yeah.
And knowing that God is going to provide for us, we know it's going to be okay. And always knowing that He's in charge, and He's the one that has pulled through for us month after month with all of life's events. And so we're like, you know, it's whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and we've got each other to problem solve and figure out what the next best move is.
Yep. I love all that. It all works, all relates. So James, would you say that, I think, you know, just from your discussion on changing jobs and the way you've been able to integrate your faith there, do you think that's changed you just in general? Change your faith, my question would be. I think that's so cool that you were able to be like super intentional about that and be like, you know what, I'm just going to be my authentic self there. How much do you think that has grown you, that recent change?
Well,
Miranda's looking at me like that was really confusing.
It was
I
question.
exactly
I'm sorry about that.
There were a lot of words there that were not necessary.
Yeah, I threw in a lot. I wasn't sure what I was saying. I'm sorry about that. You understand where I'm going, I think? Or maybe?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I know what you're asking.
He's on board.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
Miranda gave me the look like, what? Like, okay. Maybe we need to reword that. But if you got it,
man code. The men get the question.
Yeah, I got the man code. I get you there.
Good.
And don't feel bad. I get that look a lot of times from my wife too. James, that could have been said much more easily.
Yeah.
So I know days that are challenging and days that are less than exciting to be at work itself. You still got to show up as a Christian on those days. You still got to be calm, cool, and collected on those days. You still got to bring a loving kindness address to the kid who's not not feeling it that day, you know. And when you've got, sometimes in the classroom, it's not actual content. It's maybe a behavior management situation, or maybe something's going on at home, and you know, Johnny or Susie is not interested in Pythagorean theorem at that point.
Yeah.
He's interested in where's tonight's food going to come from, or is mom going to come home, that kind of thing. And so to be able to identify those things and say, hey, you know, I have maybe 10 months with this person before they graduate and go to the next grade. Mm-hmm. So in that 10-month time frame, quantify it. How many hours a day is that? How many days a week is that? What big holidays are coming up? Like, how can I show up for that person when their life is tough as well? And it also puts, to me, you said, like, how does your faith, how do you integrate? Your faith is now more integrated in your work. How does that change your faith?
Uh-huh.
I think it only forces me to be authentic with folks. It kind of forces a hand, not forces a hand, because that makes it sound like inauthentic.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm going to be talking the game, that it needs to be walked as well. I can walk all day long and not mention the name of Christ, or not mention, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But as soon as I mention Jesus, right, as soon as I mention that the good things that he's done for me, he can do the same for you. people watch you differently. And sometimes they might watch you just to see how you're going to react. They might watch you just to see if you fall, how hard you're going to fall and what you're going to say when you're down there.
Hmm.
And if you're still praising the Lord below the waves as well as above, then people are going to hear you differently. They're going to respond to you. And I've noticed that people respond to you differently. If you're below the waves and still praising his name, well, what does this person have that I don't? What is it about them that makes them feel okay in this situation? Because I'd be freaking out otherwise. And I'm not saying I get it right all the time. I don't. I mean, even just this morning, Alaina came back from doing some errands, and I was doing some stuff here at the house. And I said, "Hey, sweetheart, earlier this morning at breakfast, I said this, and this, and I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry." And she was like, "Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you." Like, you need to be able to say that in those moments, because when you don't, whether you're at work or home, like, people are watching and people are going to remember.
Yeah.
And do you want to be remembered as the person of, like, wow, that person really does bring his game to work. He really does bring his game at home. Or no, he just talks a big game. He just looks a big game. That I think that's been the biggest change. It because I've ushered in and prayed in so much throughout the day that it's like, all right, I need to show up in my flesh, as Paul says, deny the flesh, what does he say in Romans 12? Don't be transformed by the ways of this world, but instead be transformed by the renewing of your mind. If I submit my mind and my will to his will, then my flesh doesn't have room to act out, because I'm acting in the will of my Father, not my flesh, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's huge, because it's that acting piece. It's not just, well, I'm gonna talk a big game. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. But then it's that actually acting. I think that God calls us to even more. So that's awesome. It's good
right.
stuff.
And also also at that point, at no means should you be late for work. You know, at no means should you be late grading the papers and giving them back to the kids. At no means should you just miss a meeting because you don't feel like going. Yeah. You know, like, being 100 all the time for every little thing is going to get you. I don't care who you are. If you are a Christian, if you are not, if you bring your A game all the time, people are going to respect you big time. But if they see a Christian doing that as well as bringing their A game, then I feel like that gives us a little more credibility to speak the gospel.
Well, the other thing too is, with all of that, it's almost like you've got more eyes on you, because you've got 30 kids at a time. They know whether you're being real or not, and whether you care or not, and be able to not necessarily tell them, hey, I love Jesus, but if you're acting that way, they're going to still pick up on those things too, you know?
Right.
Yeah, kids see right through you. It's kind of freaky.
They do. They do.
Because they see things differently than adults do. They can just see they see it for what it is sometimes. You're like, wait a second.
Right.
We can transition to our next question now. That's all good stuff, James. Thanks for sharing that. Super cool. But we just wanted to ask you guys what some of your long-term goals were. It could be professionally or personally. Either or can go for it first. Or if you guys have goals together you want to talk about too, that's just fine.
Yeah, so right now we're still kind of brainstorming and trying to figure out what we want to do in the meanwhile. But lately we've been talking a little bit about, you know, what do we want to do with our lives long term? And the idea of getting involved in a Christian organization or a Christian company and doing work there at local missions, and getting involved in some sort of organization where we can act with a missional focus. That's just something we've been game planning and kind of talking about lately in terms of, you know, when would we want to do that? If we have to move, where would that be? And we've really enjoyed just talking about it and thinking about the future and how can we better serve God and be able to go and make a difference in our communities. So that's been our recent talk about what we want to do. in terms of some long-term goals.
Cool.
But at least for me. I think James feels pretty common with that too. And just think about, what if we did something where it wasn't necessarily a 9-to-5 job? Or what if we weren't limited by the culture of areas that are predominantly non-Christian, or at least having more of that as like a support system for where we work. So that's just been something that we've been talking about lately. Again, we don't know when it's going to happen, but it's just fun to talk about and know that that's something that we both have a common goal for, and that we want to do this together.
Yeah.
We're also
very cool.
we're also trying to build a little bit of margin in our budget each month to be able to do that. Saving a little bit each month goes a long way. Thankfully, I've done that, and Alaina has done that. And then, now that our finances are combined, right, married, that kind of thing.
Yep.
We, being on the same page there, we can compound that same ideology. Say, okay, well, let's get through this season of life, and then when we're done, we can make the next transition. And I like podcasting too, man. I like listening to a lot of Dave Ramsey's podcasts, and something that I've heard him and other Ramsey personalities say is that if you want to make transitions like that, make sure that the boat is close enough to the dock so that
it's a
step. Yeah, like you're stepping from the boat safely onto the dock and not like jumping and landing in the water. If we've got 4 and 5 credit cards, if we've got this and that loan, and we got a car payment, and we got the mortgage that's more than whatever, like that's too much. There's no margin in your life. If every minute of our time is committed to say, well, we're spending this amount of time at work, and then when we get home, we got these activities, and then we signed up for this, and we got to go do that, and then I committed myself over here, and then Alaina committed herself over there. Where's the time to focus on, next steps?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So just even being intentional now,
Yep.
knowing what you want to get to, just kind of puts things into perspective and what you want to do with what you got today.
And I recognize some people may hear that and say, well, James and Alaina, that's very nice, but y'all don't have kids. Y'all ain't got an elderly parent that you're trying to take care of. And I understand that there are life circumstances that often than not may dictate your time.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be different life circumstances for everyone.
Yeah.
Even if not right now, then at some point.
Right.
Just to know that it will come.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And even then, if you've got margin up until that moment, it puts you that further ahead. And I'm saying that, not me saying that. My dad is actually in a situation like that. He's got 2, his mom as well as my mom's mom. They're bouncing back and forth, taking care of them and doing a lot of things. And I see how he gives of his time and also makes time for those who are important in his life. My mom the same way. So it's something that he's always told me is to say, hey, make sure to pay yourself first. Make sure to take care of your family first, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Even with all the stuff that he's got going on, he still advocates for margin. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's super important. I love that. You guys have any other long-term goals that you want to discuss before we move on to the final question and wrap things up here?
We no.
That's the only thing that we've been talking about.
Yeah, that's a big long-term one. I know
You've had your hands full.
Yeah, I think it's cool that you both recognize that, even in the midst of all the change that you're going through right now, which is crazy, and that's a really tough question, I think, to answer. And I'm sorry for that, but it's tough when you're going through all that to think about, you know, okay, what's
Right.
next?
And I'm
But I think
honestly not a long-term planner either.
yeah. And we've never been
You know,
either,
that's
but I
okay.
think it's been cool to be able to have those discussions, even in the midst of all that change. Like, okay, we don't want to feel or get stuck in where we're at right now. We want to figure out, like,
Sure.
you need to at least have some kind of plan for the direction, or at the very least, like, be talking about it.
Mhm.
That's our
Right.
suggestion.
And if it's never talked about, if it's never written down, yeah, when is it going to happen? I know you say it's a tough question. I'm sorry, but like, don't be sorry.
Yeah.
I think it's important for all of us, whether someone's there to ask it or not. Hey, what's your next step going to be? And not in a bully way, or not in a way that, you know, but in a way that does make us think, well, okay, well, maybe I'm comfortable here. Here's a way I can maybe stretch myself and get to that next level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's a good question to ask.
Yeah, and I think the answer, it's always okay too if the answer's like, well, I'm not really pushing toward anything right now. I'm just trying to get through what I have. And I think there's definitely
Oh my gosh, I know.
There's definitely seasons in life where you're going to be like, hey, I'm just trying to stay afloat here. You know, I can't think too much about the future, and that's fine too. I just think the danger is when people stick to that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But,
or become complacent in it. I can think for a time in my life when I was single, where, you know, I was working hard to pay off debts and just be busy with stuff. And someone had asked me that very same question. And I was like, look, I'm really just trying to get through next Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just trying to make it work right now. Ask me again in 8 months.
Yeah.
and as the clock ticks down, ask me again in 6 months. Ask me again in 2 months. You know, if you're in that season of life right now, that's fine. But put an expiration date on that season.
Yes, great point. Great point.
Yeah, because I've been in that spot. I mean, Alaina can even tell you before before we met, I consolidated my life big time. I was very lucky and found a college professor in the area who was renting an above garage apartment, and the air conditioning didn't always work. It was a small space.
Yep.
But man, the savings, right? And I had another colleague mention. He said, "Hey, well, I need some baseball fields cut. I need some baseball games refereed. Can you come work that for me?" I said, "Sure." I mean, it was 12-hour days at one point, but I knew that it was for a season, and it wasn't always going to be like that. And when it got tough, I had to tell myself that, like, James, you're not seeing anybody right now. You're, you're the only one dependent on your income. How bad do you want to get out of this situation? How bad do you want a better situation?
Yep, that's
because if you meet someone right now, do you would they want to click up with you right now? You know, keep pushing, and maybe something better will come of it. And look at that, something did. You know,
yeah, that's awesome.
But I had to put an expiration date on that. If I didn't do that, 10 years could have gone by.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so this question is, I'm excited to ask this one because we just started wording it this way. So we'll see what you guys think. What is one secret to a weird yet amazing life? So we've gone through some advice from the past, but maybe we'll see what you guys say for that.
I honestly love this question because I feel like I lived it out all the time. And first off, in terms of a weird yet amazing life, I know I'm not coming up with any new advice here, but honestly, I don't care what people think. So if I feel like being weird, I'm going to be weird. And if people don't like it, then you don't need them in your life kind of attitude. And I mean, I do it with James all the time, and I'll come up with, the weirdest mannerisms in terms of just who I am and my personality, and
I love it.
And James loves it, and he adds into it, And if you can surround yourself with people who embrace who you are, that just opens up so much more to having fun and relaxing and not always, thinking in your head, oh, what does that person think of me? Or should I act differently in this situation here? Like if you're always questioning yourself, you're not going to be wanting to go outside of the circle and go outside those lines and be able to go and enjoy what you're doing and who you want to be with that. In terms of amazing life, if you want to go and make something happen, do it, because when are you going to get to it later if you don't say, hey, I'm going to make this happen? In terms of just that, the confidence, there's a story that my family loves thinking about. When I was in elementary school, I told him one day, I said, I'm going to learn how to ride a unicycle, which sounds absurd, right?
Yeah.
And I bought the unicycle. I practiced religiously on our street. And then once I finally figured it out, I came running inside. Mom, Dad, come out here. I can ride a unicycle. And boom, I did it. And, like if you don't put a certain boundary on yourself, you can actually make it happen and really enjoy the life that's been given to you and just take a full advantage of who you are and be able to take those risks and being confident that you can do it and you might actually surprise yourself that you were able to go and achieve that.
So can you still ride a unicycle?
Oh, no.
Yeah, important question. Because I was going to make you take a video of it and we were going to put it on the so.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
That's still amazing though. Wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, even in today in my adult life, if I say I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to do it. Like another example more recently was one of my principals told me last year, oh, we're going to switch you to a different content for the next school year. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm thinking in my head, don't they realize I'm trying to plan for a wedding and plan on where I'm going to live with my new husband and what am I going to do when we got 2 kitties now? And I'm thinking in my head, I've got all this outside work life thing I got to figure out. And you're expecting me to teach a new content, but by golly, I said I was going to do it. I read the book every night. I worked hard while also planning for all these other things outside of work. And guess what? I did it, So just don't set a limit or a doubt on yourself in order to go and make it happen.
That is awesome. I love all of that. That's so great. I love that story, Alaina. That's super cool. Anything you want to add there, James?
So
I don't know how much you can add to that. It's pretty good.
That's pretty good. I mean, I'm still working on my unicycle and I just can't get it.
I don't know if I'll ever try. I'll break my face.
My face, yeah. We have to go to
Don't doubt yourself.
Don't doubt.
Okay, you're right. I can do it.
As we say on the way to the face doctor, I'm not doubting myself. Oh man. So I would say choose joy. I know if you think about some of your best friends, you think about some of the best moments you spent together. It was not, it wasn't when you were both really sad, or I mean, it might have been a very positive bonding moment. But you think about the time you got to hang with your buddies, you got to do this, you got to do that.
Yeah.
And you're just choosing to enjoy that moment, or you're choosing to enjoy that situation. The situation goes by a lot quicker. I mean, even if you're in a tough one, like, kind of earlier, like how bad do you want out kind of a thing, or how bad do you want up, right?
Yep.
If you choose joy in those moments, it makes it so much easier to not push through, but to just go through. I think one of my favorite movies, like honestly, one of the top 5 favorites, is it's an Adam Sandler movie called Click. And have you guys seen it before?
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
Miranda hasn't, but
so for our friends who haven't seen it, he's married, he's got 2 kids, and he's looking forward to that promotion, right? So like he's just pushing, trying to get to his next steps. And he runs an errand, I think, for his family. and he meets Christopher Walken at a Bed Bath & Beyond.
Uh-huh.
And Christopher Walken gives him a remote and is like, hey, this remote gets you through the boring parts. Just press this fast forward button. But be careful because it gets used to your preferences. And that's it. And then he walks away. So Adam Sandler starts to use the remote, and he's pushing, and he's pushing it. He's pushing it.
I have seen this. I thought you said
You have seen it?
I thought you
Isn't
said
it
Adam's
good?
Family. It's Sandler.
No.
I was very confused. Okay.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah,
Adam
Miranda was like,
Sandler,
no, I
my
haven't
bad.
seen that. Okay.
I didn't know there were multiple Adam's Family movies.
That's
I
funny.
should've
No,
had
not
more
try.
coffee. I'm sorry. I just had to interrupt there. I was
That's good. No, that's good. That's worth it. And I can think, but anyway, so he's pushing through, and all of a sudden he's like, he misses like his son's birthday party, and the birthday party's over. And all of a sudden, like 12 years goes by, and he's at the promotion, but because he's so focused only on the milestones and not the journey to get there, he lost his marriage as a result. One of his kids doesn't even talk to him anymore.
Uh-huh.
His dad is like on his deathbed, and like he didn't even know it. And the dad is Harry Winkler. It's amazing. Fonzie from Happy Days. And it's a heartfelt movie. Like when I watched it, it was such a message to me to slow down and enjoy what's happening day to day. Stop focusing so much on the milestones and focus on them. Don't not focus on them, but also focus on the journey that gets you there in the meantime.
And then just to add on to that, with the day-to-day events, I always tell myself, is it worth getting upset over this? Am I really going to be mad about this a week later?
Yeah.
If not, I'm not going to worry about it because I don't want to waste my life on getting easily frustrated at something that in long term, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's
I could literally go out today and have a car accident. And all those moments that I was frustrated because somebody cut me off in traffic, or I was sitting in traffic, well, now all of a sudden I can't drive a car anymore. So I wasted a whole lot of time whining about not being able to do this and this and this, and I was at least able to drive.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or like, oh man, my outfit is so terrible. I wish I had this, this, and this in my wardrobe, or I wish I had this, this, and that. And, maybe something happened, you lose your eyesight. Doesn't matter what you look like anymore. It doesn't matter what those clothes looked like. Why did I spend all that time shopping? I'm saying this as a guy, honestly, I love going shopping. I'm definitely a spender. Elena's the saver. But just, stuff like that. Yeah. Elena's point of, is this worth getting upset about? I can get there real quick sometimes with an outside situation.
But you can control how you react to it.
But we can always control how we react. And life is so precious, it's not worth it. It is so not worth fussing and carrying on, because you don't know how, like, our days are numbered. Like Scripture totally says our days are numbered. Make the days count, because it says the days are evil, and it's not that the days are evil. It's that we live under a curse that says you got an expiration date at some point. And that's evil that it even exists. It's a shame that even exists. So make the days count while you still can on earth.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you.
Drop
guys.
the mic.
Yeah.
Drop the mic.
That's it. Thank you guys so much for coming on and talking with us. You definitely gave us, and our listeners a lot to think about.
Yeah, for
definitely
sure.
A lot of wisdom there. So thank you so much for coming on with us. This was really just great talking to you guys. And we wish you all the luck with all of your current change and your future change and, everything else that comes your way.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure. We've been really looking forward to talking with y'all.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
we enjoyed
thank you guys.
Of course.
Absolutely.
All right, Freedom Casters, thanks so much for listening all the way to the end of this episode. Miranda and I both very much enjoyed our interview with James and Alaina, and we hope you had some really good takeaways from that. I would ask you one quick favor. If you could go to facebook.com/Jordan and Miranda Ring and like our Facebook page there, Leaving Normal Behind. That would be awesome. Again, that's facebook.com/Jordan and Miranda Ring. The name of the page is Leaving Normal Behind. If you just want to search that in Facebook, that's fine. If you would like that page, leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. We would very much appreciate it. Otherwise, stay toasty, friends, and have a great rest of your weekend.